Welcome. I am so glad you're here. This guide is going to walk you through everything you need to know to become a really key contributor to an important scientific project. Okay, so let's just dive right in. Here's our mission briefing. We're going to cover the why behind this whole thing, get into the core concepts you'll be using, I'll walk you through the actual tool, give you some pro tips for accuracy, and then we'll talk about the final steps to get you all finished up. So first up, let's talk about the big picture. Why are you here? And more importantly, why is your role so incredibly critical for this research? Let's get into it. The entire project is built around this really fascinating theory called Axiodynamics. The basic idea is that our decisions, they aren't just cold, rational calculations. Instead, it's more like we have these competing emotional and cognitive forces that are constantly pushing and pulling us toward a goal. And this is the most crucial point, so listen up. You are not just clicking buttons or rating texts. No, you are creating what we call the gold standard. Your human judgment, your intuition, that becomes the benchmark we use to train and validate our computer models. Seriously, without your input, the machine just can't learn. So this number here really spells out our collective goal. See, for this research to be considered scientifically valid, we have to show that different people, like you and others, can apply these concepts in a consistent way. We measure that consistency with something called a kappa score, and our target is at least 0.60. Hitting that number is the proof that these forces we're talking about can be reliably identified by pretty much anyone. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Think of these as the core tools in your toolkit. For every single text you look at, you're going to be measuring these two fundamental forces. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with the telos. The best way to think about it is like an emotional magnet inside the text. It's the central goal, the main objective that's pulling the whole argument in one specific direction. And here's the best part. The telos is always provided to you in the app. You never ever have to guess what it is. So for each text, you're measuring two different forces relative to that telos. The first one is the Conative Force. We just call it FC. This is the push. It's the motivation, the urgency, all the arguments that are driving you, the reader, towards that goal. Then you have the Inhibiting Force, or FI. This is the brake. It's all the obstacles, the doubts, the bits of discouragement that push you away from the goal. And you'll be scoring these forces on a pretty simple scale, from 0 to 5. A 5 is pretty obvious. It's the absolute max, like a direct command or a total deal breaker. A 3 is more in the middle. But, and this is really important, pay attention to the 0. A score of 0 is a totally valid, super important choice. It just means the text is being purely descriptive. There's no real emotional push or pull happening at all. Don't be afraid to use it. All right, enough theory, let's get practical. I'm going to walk you through step by step how to use the web application. It's pretty straightforward. Your workflow for every text is going to look like this. Step 1, and always step 1, is to read the context and that telos we talked about. Then read the whole text. After that, it's time to evaluate the push force, FC, and then the brake force, FI. You can add a comment if you want, and we actually really encourage it if you find a text confusing. And then just hit submit and you're on to the next one. Simple as that. Let's look at a really clear example. Imagine the telos is implement stricter controls. Now look at the text. It uses words like must and immediately. You can feel that, right? It creates this powerful, undeniable sense of urgency. That's a textbook FID of 5. And since there are no obstacles mentioned, well, the fee is a clear 0. Okay, now let's flip it. Here, the language pushing towards the goal is super weak. Could help. That might get an FC of, say, 2. But then look what happens. It raises these huge obstacles, budget constraints, civil liberties, that really slam on the brakes. That's a high FI, probably a 4. The key takeaway here is that FC and FI are totally independent scores. One can be high while the other is low, or they can both be high or both low. Okay, let's talk about what might be the single most critical nuance in this whole process. Honestly, if you can master this next concept, your annotations are going to be incredibly consistent and super accurate. So here's the puzzle you're going to run into, probably a lot. An author describes this huge, massive problem. So is that problem supposed to make you feel helpless and discouraged? Or is it being used to light a fire under you, to say, look how bad things are, we have to do something? We call this the paradox of inhibition, and here's the secret to solving it. You have to evaluate the psychological effect it has on the reader. If an obstacle feels paralyzing, like the costs are prohibitive, well then phi is high. It stops you in your tracks. But if the obstacle is framed as a challenge we need to rise to, precisely because it's so hard we must act, then the effect is mobilization. In that case, believe it or not, phi is low, and your FC is probably going to be high. Now, to help you navigate this, we've got 6 golden rules for you. I'd say pause and read them all, but I want to point out 2 that are absolute game changers. Number 5, always look at the conclusion of the text. If it ends by dwelling on a problem, phi is probably the dominant force. If it ends on a solution or a call to action, FC is dominant. And the last rule, you have to annotate the effect of the words on the page, not what you think the author's secret plan might be. Stick to the text. All right, we are almost there. We're on the home stretch. Let's just cover the final logistical steps you need to take to complete your mission. You're going to annotate a set of 12 texts. And don't worry, if you need to step away, your session is saved automatically. Now, this is super important. After that last text, you have to fill out the final form with your name and email. That's the only way we can log your participation and, more importantly, send you your official Open Science Framework certificate. It's a really great thing to add to a CV or resume since it formally recognizes your contribution to a real scientific project. And finally, I just want to say a huge, genuine thank you. Your careful, thoughtful work is truly the essential ingredient that makes all of this research possible. You are literally helping to transform an abstract theory into a measurable, powerful tool we can use to understand how people talk and argue. We absolutely could not do it without you. Thank you.